Welcome to another episode of What is Hashimoto's with Dr. Martin Rutherford. To find out more on any of our topics, or for information on scheduling a consultation with Dr. Rutherford, please visit us at whatishashimotos.com. And now, here's Dr. Rutherford.
Hi, Dr. Rutherford. So today in our series on Hashimoto's, we're going to be talking about Hashimoto's and weight loss. A lot of these come from questions that we've gotten. We had a zillion questions. So a lot of most of what we're going to be doing over these 30 days is answering those questions and then kind of filling in the blanks for you. And some of you are saying Hashimoto's and weight loss. I got Hashimoto's and I put on 60 pounds and I can't get it off. And you are the more common Hashimoto's patient, okay, if you have put on weight. I just had a thin Hashimoto's patient, and if you want more on this, we have Hashimoto's, the thin Hashimoto's patient. We have a much longer presentation on it on powerhealthtalk.com, and you just type in thin Hashimoto's patient and we'll explain a lot more about that. But just to keep it short, about 85-90% of patients get an immune attack and on Hashimoto's, and it slows down. It beats up. It's hitting their thyroid. It's damaging thyroid tissue. It's damaging the ability for thyroid to be made. But so we start getting tired. We start getting overweight. We start getting swelling around the ankles, constipation, all things that are indicative of slow metabolism. The thyroid controls your metabolism. But there's a number of patients, about, I'd say 10%, maybe 15, maybe probably closer to 10% or less, that come in who have Hashimoto's who are thin. They have been mistakenly called hyperthyroidism. They have been tested for Graves' disease. Graves' disease is an attack on the actual thyroid stimulating hormone that stimulates your thyroid, and if you get an immune attack on that, it keeps making more and more stimulating hormone, and now you stimulate it more, you make more thyroid hormone, and you're like this. So there are two different antibodies that you measure. One's called an anti-thyroglobulin antibody, and the other one's called an thyroid peroxidase enzyme. And it seems to me like depending on which one of those get hit, or if both of them get hit, you can go into hyperthyroidism. And here's the deal: you'll be thin, okay? You'll get this attack on your thyroid, and instead of you going and getting tired and getting the weight gain, you're actually going to become hyper because that attack, unlike Graves, which attacks something called the thyroid stimulating hormone, it's attacking another part of the thyroid, but it is still forcing the thyroid to create more iodine, create more, which ultimately creates more thyroid hormone. And now when you get too much thyroid hormone, when it's too little, you're like this. When it's too much, you're like that. But the interesting part of this is that the hyperthyroid people generally are thin. They generally are wired. They generally can't sleep. They don't really have a lot of the hypothyroid symptoms from that perspective. But most of them do still, for some reason, their hair keeps will fall out. Their eyebrows will get thin. Their brows will be off. And they will have still a number of hypothyroid symptoms. So they kind of like morph back and forth between hypo and hyper, but they are hyper. When I first started doing this, and when I first started treating Hashimoto's, which was quite a while ago, we didn't know almost anything of what I'm talking to you about this month. What we knew is the person probably had Hashimoto's, and we knew what type of diet to put them on. And at that point in time, it was get off of gluten. That was our whole diet. And and so the ranges, we're going to talk about this on one of the segments. The ranges for what was Hashimoto's were all over the place. Oh my God, they were 0 to 100, 0 to 80 for these thyroid peroxidase enzymes. So we had to come up with a lot of clinical pearls as to how to figure this out. If I had someone who came in front of me and they had all of the symptoms of Hashimoto's, and they had their, and here's a uniqueness to this, and they had their thyroid TSH hormone checked, and the TSH said that they were hypothyroid, but they were as thin as this pen, we knew they had Hashimoto's, because that didn't sync, and the only thing that could cause that would be an immune attack against certain parts of the thyroid that would put that person into hyperfunction. So there's a lot more on this, on the thin Hashimoto's patient. There's a lot more nuances. There's a lot more specificities for those of you who are kind of geeky and want to know what the exact aspects of the thyroid hormones are that get attacked and how they work and the chemistry of it and all that type of stuff. But you can be thin and have Hashimoto's. And if you're thin and you have Hashimoto's, you're usually going to be hyperactive. You're usually going to have anxiety. You're going to have jittery anxiety, maybe difficult time going to sleep. Maybe instead of having constipation, maybe your bowels are going to be a little bit too rough and ready to go, and so you're going to be more hyper. You're going to be mistaken for a Graves patient. They're going to run Graves, and they're not going to know what's wrong. They're going to tell you that you got hyperthyroid, and then they're still going to give you the medication, and the medication generally isn't that successful. It can be in some people, but as we're going to talk about, really that's not the first steps to take in a case like that. So the thin Hashimoto's patient cannot even put on weight. They not only lose weight, but they can't put on weight no matter how they try. So that's kind of the cardinal side also, along with you being thin and having a hypothyroid finding for your thyroid stimulating hormones. So thin Hashimoto's patient, I think that kind of summarizes it, especially with you having that access to the other video. So that's it for today, thin Hashimoto's patient. I hope that helps those of you out there who are in that dilemma to understand your situation a little bit better.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of What is Hashimoto's? To find out more on any of our topics, or for information on scheduling a consultation with Dr. Rutherford, please visit us at whatishashimotos.com.